Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Better, Bolder, Braver podcast, helping normally coaches to put themselves out there with clarity, confidence, and joy. But I'm delighted today to have a very special guest, my friend Warren Minde here. And Warren is my first guest in a kind of mini podcast series within our podcast, who is going to kindly talk to me about his experience in the corporate space. And that's because I'm pleased to say that we have launched a Better, Bolder, Braver corporate offering. Now, Warren, I have known since I was 13. I'm not going to tell you how many years ago that was, but it's a very long time. And I remember we also, so we were in the same social circle for many years, and then we not only went to university together as well, but lived together at university, so became very close. And I remember when we were in Warren's room in our house, and I think, Warren, you had also at that time learnt how to be a Reiki master. You can tell us a bit about that in a minute. But you'd also just been given a very unique experience on the graduate program of, I think it was Unilever, was it not? Or L'Oreal, one of the two. And has always been a very, very impressive person to me from a very young age. And he's going to tell us what he's doing now, but sort of where he comes from professionally and hopefully personally. And I'm going to be asking Warren a few questions and hoping that he's going to be comfortable bringing his authentic self to this conversation about what work life means to him. So welcome, Warren. How are you arriving today?
I'm arriving in a sort of Monday-ish mood, to be honest, Francis, but delighted to be here with you. And thanks very much for such a nice introduction. Yeah.
It is easy and a pleasure to introduce you in such a way. Would you let people here know how you would describe yourself, Warren, at this time?
Professionally, personally, all of the above.
Why don't you just choose? Which is the most important to go first?
So how would I describe myself? So I'm a dad of a wonderful 10-year-old boy called Leo and a wonderful daughter called Isla Ray, who's 7. And that is, I would say, my main preoccupation. But on my side hustle is I'm an innovation consultant and coach. I run a business called Innovation Leap. I did, as Francis says, I despite Reiki healing and fire throwing and various other kind of student pastimes, my career did start at L'Oreal in marketing for a few years. And then I went to Unilever and managed brands like Lynx deodorant and Ben & Jerry's and Magnum for a while. Went to Australia with them for a little bit. And after about 10 years doing that kind of marketing and innovation for big corporates, I went into consulting and worked for various different companies and landed up in innovation and foresight consulting at Kantar Consulting. Again, working with lots of different big corporate companies, from Lego to Mondelez to Microsoft and kind of everyone in between. I then went into a startup for 2 years after about 10 years in consulting world. And then about a year and a half ago, I went out on my own and began this consultancy that I now run called Innovation Leap, where I do capability building, consulting in innovation and foresight and culture building, and also executive coaching as well. So I am a trained executive coach as well. And I know that many of your listeners are too. So that's me today, I guess, is I've taken all those experiences of various types of innovation and marketing and bring them together for clients now as Innovation Leap.
Yeah. Okay, great. Now, as you can all tell, Warren comes across as a very confident, eloquent, clear individual. And also, I've chosen Warren as my first guest because I know he can take it if I try and poke him a bit on a personal level, because he'll just bat it back, as he always has done with me for 30 years if it's inappropriate questioning. But I will ask you, Warren, you come across, as I say, as super confident and like you've got all your shit sorted. Is that what's going on?
Not all the time. No, of course not. I think there are peaks and troughs for everyone. And I went from corporate world to agency world to startup world to running my own thing. So I've kind of gone from very, very big to very, very focused over the course of my career. And in the last year and a half, moving to running my own business, I'd say there are definitely, and if you speak to anyone that owns their own business, um, there are moments where it's absolutely awesome and you're flying high and everything is under control and you have freedom and you're working with people you love and it's great. And there are moments when you are terrified of what you've done and think it's completely crazy and have massive imposter syndrome and are not sure, whether you can get out of bed or whether you'll be able to succeed at your job at all. So I don't pretend that it's all entirely kind of fantastic all the time, but overall I'm really, really happy with and feel really, really lucky and grateful for how my career has gone and the experiences that I've had, the people I've been lucky enough to work with, and where I've landed up now is right for now. And I'm broadly, I'm delighted with what I'm doing, and broadly I am pretty happy and content with it. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you think about any experiences, either positive or negative, when you were in-house, if you like, when you were employed,
Yeah.
where you had to articulate when something didn't feel quite right? And can you speak to how quickly it took you to be able to speak up and how that felt?
Yeah, I think over your career and as you get more and more experienced, you gradually learn about yourself and you learn what you like and what you're good at and what you want to spend your time doing. Time is our most important currency. What do you want to spend your time doing in a given week? You're going to design your perfect week is a great question to ask oneself. So if I think of examples like the one you're suggesting, they come further back in my career, right? So if I think right back to the start, I was at a corporate, let's say it's a very popular, beauty brand.
That he may or may not have already name dropped in
which I
this.
may or may not have already name dropped, that talks about people being worth it. That, we're talking 20 years ago or so when I first started there as a grad. Fantastic business, really exciting, really dynamic, really entrepreneurial. And also really tough, right? Really hierarchical, really kind of long hours, pretty brutal, pretty direct, and hard. It was very sink or swim. It's changed over the years, and there have been great people evolving that business to something much with a much better, stronger culture. I know it has that now, but at the time it was exciting and dynamic, but also quite brutal. And I remember feeling like I couldn't really articulate why. It just felt like it wasn't right for me. And I was being forced to do things which I later reflect were against my values of kind of respect and kindness and kind of simplicity. Things like, talking to an agency partner. Say I'm a marketing manager of Elnet hairspray or Men Expert face creams or something. And my boss has told me in no uncertain terms that I need to call an agency at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday and get them to rework something that I know is going to take them hours and deliver it at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. So things like that to me are just, I would never do that in my own business. It's completely out of order. It's completely disrespectful. I've got a relationship with the person at the agency, but I have to do it because of the culture I'm in. Those sort of things made me feel kind of sick. And over a period of time, realizing that A, I was going against my values a lot in that business, and B, as a result, I wasn't very good, frankly, at the stuff I was being asked to do and the way I was being asked to do it and the pressure that I was being asked to do it with. I struggled to go, because I didn't know anything or have any experience, whether I just wasn't cut out for work or whether I was just wrong or stupid or incapable in some way. I had a fantastic boss at the time, a lady called Ariana Botti, who still works at, I think she's a general manager now, of L'Oreal UK. And she took me aside. She'd worked in lots of roles prior to that in different types of marketing roles. And she said, look, this place might not be for you, right? The kind of marketing we do here in a local market might not be right for you. It's fast paced. It's very executional. It's very pressured, etc. Very black and white. There's another kind of marketing which is global, which is strategic and creative and has more time to it, but is more about understanding people and psychology and all that stuff. You'd be great at that. That's where you need to be, not maybe here. Have a think about that. And she was really gentle and really honest about it. And I really look back and appreciate the conversation I've told her. So, because I went and I joined Unilever in a global role, went and joined managing Lynx deodorant at the time. And it was amazing. It felt like exactly where I needed to be with exactly my people who all thought in the same way that I did, respectful of partners. And from there, I was able to kind of grow and blossom and get my confidence back. But yeah, while I love my time at L'Oreal, you know, towards the end of the 2 or 3 years that I was there, it started to feel really wrong for those reasons. And I really appreciate that conversation with Ariana.
Thank you. That is such a beautiful story, and there's quite a lot in there that we could, you know, a number of directions that I think we could go in that speak to culture and society at the time,
Yeah.
different sectors, different approaches to management. And I kind of want to ask you how you think things might have changed actually culturally, you know, in the world since then, because that was an early job for you, and
Yeah.
you know, we're in our 40s now.
Yeah.
And
Hard to believe, right? But yes, we are.
I
Yeah.
know,
You
I
look at
know. And it was funny this morning, as
yeah.
you know, I go to Barry's boot camp with an old friend of mine who you've known as well for donkeys, Anya. And she was joking that there would be people in the room there who didn't even know what a lonely planet was,
Yeah.
and you know what a library was. And we are living in a very different time to the one we were living in, you
Yep.
know, when we started work, you and I. So what is this generation of younger people now, do you think, expecting from work? And how does it differ from what we've been used to? And how is that important for people to remember on both sides of that, in your experience?
So I think there was an expectation when we grew up into work that the first few years of your work, you were going to be painful. You're going to work hard while you've got the energy and youth to do so. And you're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn from them. But you need to do that to kind of climb the ladder, as it were. And I think that whole concept of climbing the ladder has shifted dramatically. I think that the concept of status has shifted dramatically. Status and respect used to be associated with having climbed the ladder and being the CEO of a giant corporation. The generation who are going into work now would see the people that are people they respect or see as having status, not people that have climbed up a ladder slowly but surely, but people that have bypassed it, people that have founded a unicorn startup or have become YouTube influencers and gained millions of followers or have launched something that's been an enormous success. And those kind of somewhat mythical stories of success are everywhere. And I think that's what people sort of aspire to, a kind of new extreme American dream in a way. And this idea that you can and should love what you do and love the people that you do it with and love the purpose with which they are doing it as well. So I think all of that has changed. I think some of it is realistically a bit of a challenge for a business, right? So as an employee, I do think you should look to find an employer where your values and their values match, right? That's, going back to the L'Oreal story, that's the key thing for me is do my values match with those of the company so that I can feel that I can express myself there safely. Like that is really important. From an employer perspective, is it fair that my employees should expect not just financial fulfillment, but sort of emotional and psychological and everything fulfillment from just the work aspect of their life? Maybe not. Maybe that's a lot to ask of a business, right? I think all businesses should be trying to do that, but I think that in some cases the expectations are too high, and that there are other aspects of society, government and kind of social society that should be looking after that stuff a little bit. And maybe we look in the mirror, we'd see those things are lacking so much that businesses are trying to fill that void. I think it's harsh to expect them to do it all the time.
I'm picturing you sitting with Leo,
Yeah.
and having a father-son conversation where,
Okay.
on the one hand, knowing you're very keen for him to be able to express himself and have a sort of positive sense of self and expectation, but at the other, on the other hand, also to kind of have a sense of the bigger picture. And, knowing you, I can imagine your approach to fathering, parenting, probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of very conscientious with regard to boundaries and a sense of not discipline, but, sort of the right thing, and sort of, yes, not a kind of Lord of the Flies approach, I'm imagining. Does that resonate? Do you sort of feel into there being a sort of almost paternal quality to the way in which you manage people now, or have people
Right.
reporting into?
If that's the question, yeah, I do think that my approach to management changed when I had kids. And definitely it gives you a new perspective, and definitely it adds a sort of paternalistic care and kindness and quality and patience to the way that you manage people. Yeah, I do think that. And just like I said, there are moments where work is flowing and it's brilliant and you feel on top of the world and you feel like you're doing a great job, and there are moments where you're like, I can't do this, I'm not cut out for this, it's overwhelming. It's same for parenting, right? There are times when you feel way out of your depth and that you don't really have the answers at all, and there are times when you feel like you're completely rocking it, and I think that's just life, that's just how it goes. But yeah, I think there have always been warm parental companies, if that's sort of where you're going with this, and places that care about culture, sort of as much as performance, and genuinely have policies that look after their people and their well-being. And there are others that, I guess, prioritize performance explicitly above the well-being of their people. And I do think that, I guess what I'm advocating for is that the responsibility is on you as a person, as an employee, to find a place that fits with you. You cannot expect every company to be your mummy and daddy, basically.
That might be the quote of this podcast.
I think it's nice if they are, but you can't expect every company to do that, because every company can't, because they've got to look after their bottom line first, then their top line, then their people. Well, they might see it that way. Some other business might not.
Okay. So let's take that forward a bit. I was really pleased, as I've mentioned to you, that 2 days before I launched a product for corporates, which revolved around how to get the best out of an individual,
Yeah.
which is good for them and good for the company.
Mm-hmm.
2 days before that, our hero in the good ethical marketing world, Seth Godin, released his latest publication, his latest book, which is called The Song of Significance, which is about something very similar. So I was delighted that we were singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
And Seth Godin, as many people here may also know, famously said, "I'm not for everyone, and that's okay." And I wondered then if we could speak about personal brand. And of course, another reason I wanted to have you on this podcast mini series first is because you are an expert in marketing. So thinking about personal brand and thinking about what that means for an individual in the workplace,
Mm.
how would you describe your own identity shifting or, establishment of a personal Warren Minde brand over the years, and how important has that been for you to be very clear on and sort of consistent on, or not? How's it stood you in good stead? How hasn't it, in fact, stood you in good stead to have a personal brand?
I Firstly, I think really the concept of a personal brand, is not something I've always been aware of at all in the workplace. And it's really only been something I've been pretty consciously aware of since running my own thing maybe 2 years ago and starting Innovation League. I think, again, over the course of your career, you try when you're on early in your career, or I did, to try and fill the gaps where you are weak, right? To try and get a rounded perspective of all the things you can't do and try and get good at, numbers and sales and design and all kinds of things that are not my strong suit. And then after a while, you realize, maybe 10 years or so into your career, I remember there was a tangible sort of moment of clarity. I was like, I am not going to bother anymore trying to be an accountant, because I am not an accountant. I am not going to try and be an amazing graphic designer, because I am not an amazing graphic designer. I am a world-class facilitator of meetings. I really understand innovation and marketing, right? But if you ask me to put that into beautiful PowerPoint slides, I'm probably not your guy. If you want me to turn that into a myriad of detailed numbers and a huge studying kind of, thesis, I'm not your guy. So what I began to do, I guess, is to get self-aware from talking to other people about and getting 360 reviews and all those kind of things that happen as you go through your career. You do Myers-Briggs and you do various things that help you understand what you're really like from your perspective, but also from others' perspectives. I began to double down on my strengths and turn my weaknesses into strengths as well. So now I will say to people that hire me, by the way, you are not going to get a pretty PowerPoint from me. Okay. You're going to get ugly slides with brilliant content in them. Okay. You're not going to get a huge studying thesis from me. You're going to get concise, clear, simple thinking that you'll actually read. Right. So because I'm not the person that wants to write reams and reams and reams and reams of stuff that no one's going to read, I'm not the guy that's going to get pernickety about a PowerPoint. I'm going to give you the stuff that's going to drive growth in your business in 3 bullet points on a really ugly slide. And if I'm upfront about that, people know what to expect and they kind of like it. They're like, cool, all right. I know I need to hire a designer if I'm going to show this to someone else. But, I think I've turned those weaknesses into strengths through self-awareness and focused on the strengths. And as you get to a place in your career, and for those who are listening to this who are a bit younger, you will get to that place where you can start to take a bit more control and autonomy of who you want to work and how you want to work. you can focus your client's attention, your colleagues' attention, your boss's attention on where you're strong and be a bit more confident about that, rather than trying to feel like you need to fill weaknesses. And I think, as I listen to myself say that, I think it's something I wish I'd realized a bit earlier, actually. And I think a lot of young people entering the workplace might want to focus on too, is like, what are you really strong on? Just go at that hard and don't be wasting time trying to fill the gaps which are not your passion point and are not your strong suit.
Yeah. And I think the skill, which is sort of where the work that I would like to do comes in, is what do you do with that information? When you've got clear on who you are, what you want, what you need, how do you have conversations that are appropriate and collaborative and creative and constructive? And I think you and I now, you being a trained executive coach and me running a community for coaches, are fully aware of how wonderful the skill of coaching is. And I describe to my community members that marketing is coaching out loud to give your potential clients a sense of what it feels like to work with you, because you're able to ask penetrating questions and meet them where they are and be the guide and not the hero through your marketing. Not to stand on a soapbox, as I say, and vomit all your stuff all over the people, but to ask questions of people so that they understand that you can see, hear, and feel into where they are, and that you understand who they are. And that's good marketing as a coach. And equally, an individual who is clear on their needs and wants in a workplace might then like to think about what are the corresponding questions that I can ask that will invite collaborations with the right kind of people, or make sure I have people around me that can fill the gaps, as you say, for the skills that I don't rejoice in every day.
Yeah.
Rather than, for example, standing up and saying, I don't do this and I won't do that. So, it's, the skill is not so much the skill is to work out who you are. And then the next important bit is, what do you then do with that information? Isn't it?
It is, yes. And I think related to that, there's a tool that I use a lot when I'm building a team or a group of people that I'm going to collaborate with on a project. And as a consultant, I did a lot of that. You'd be moving from project to project, and you would have a group of between 3 and 8 people that would be working with you on a project, and I still do that. And one of the things we would do at the start, kind of kicking off that team, would be to just very openly go around the room and say, right, we are going to be like a group of superheroes, right? We're going to be like the Avengers. And the thing about a group of superheroes is they complement each other, right? So they know about each other's superhero powers, but they also know about each other's weaknesses. And that's why they work well as a group together. And so you go around the room and you talk to, what's my superhero power, but also what's my Achilles heel, right? What am I good at? What am I aware that I'm rubbish at? Okay. And then as you go around the room and hear those things, it's interesting to look at where you'll be able to complement each other. So someone will invariably say, I'm an ideas man. I hate doing the nitty gritty kind of detail stuff. And then someone else will say, I hate standing up in front of people and talking about ideas, but I love articulating them and getting them really clear and detailed, and going into I'm curious enough to go into the minutiae of why they exist. And you'd be like, great, you guys completely complement each other. And so we're going to work well as a team. So I think the kind of manual of me stuff, the how to work best with me stuff, can slot in sensitively into a conversation about how you will work as a team together. In that sense, if that makes sense.
Totally. And I love the term manual of me. I love that.
There is, I can't remember who wrote that, but there is somebody that has talked about the idea of articulating a manual of me that's literally and now I know of people I've worked with that when I've worked with them, they've literally handed me a printed document that says, this is what I'm like, this is how I work best, this is how to get the best out of me. It's the manual of me, basically.
That's brilliant. It's like a
Operating
me
manual.
playbook.
Yeah, an operating manual for working with Francis. There you go. And then you start working as opposed to not. And I think if you're really going to build a relationship with somebody and have a long working relationship with someone, that's not a bad idea to articulate those things and have a meeting or share it in a very transparent, open way with the intent of working brilliantly together as a team because you know that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And certainly Simon and I, when we first fell for each other and gave birth to Better, Bolder, Braver, we spent a long time. In fact, we walked down Regent's Canal in London for hours and hours and just let it all out and told each other who we were. And then we actually published a manifesto on our website, which you can all see. And that articulates very clearly to people what we stand for, what we're behind, and sort of what we care about and care about changing. And on that note, I want to ask you a sort of final question, I suppose, because this is you're a busy man. This mini podcast series is also for busy people, so it's a lovely, short, sharp snapshot of my
Yeah.
guests. The last question is a tricky one. Now, you and I have been in the world of what used to be called CSR, is now kind of corporate responsibility, comes under comms. It's that question of how do you decide what companies are right for you to work for or with as an individual? And it's obviously a very subjective set of questions that one might have. But, when I was in the world of corporate sponsorship, different organizations would draw the line at different sponsors that they did not feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Part of the work that I want to do is to help organizations contribute to big system change, to have manifestos, to kind of see themselves as responsible members of society, and to make those goals very clear to their employees so that their employees can fly that flag, but also so that employees, frankly, can tell them that they're not an organization they want to work for, if the case is that. Can you speak to your own experience without putting yourself in an uncomfortable position about, situations where you have not felt okay about working for a brand or an organization, or any advice that you would give someone?
First, I'd say there's a really interesting article in the Sunday Times just yesterday from Martha Lane Fox talking about codes of ethics in the business section about how businesses should have a code of ethics, and that a huge percentage of the FTSE 350 don't even have a code of ethics. So that as a first step is important, and asking for the code of ethics of the business that you are potentially going to go and work for could be a good start. Asking if they have values or behaviors or a mission or a vision that they live by, and looking on their website for that is a good start. But then there's no substitute for actually talking to people that work there and have left there as well. Glassdoor is good for this, to understand, what people loved about it and what they hated about it. And no company will be perfect, but from that information, you can work out which things are a priority for you and try and make sure that it does broadly align with your values. But I do think this is one of the hardest things for people when they are choosing a client to work with or a business to join, is you go through an interview process, particularly in today's kind of very virtual world, where it's very, very hard to grasp hold of the culture of a company and really feel it before you've started. I just think it's imperative to do everything you can to try and do that before you begin any job or any kind of working relationship, to make sure that your cultures are going to connect and your values are going to align and all of that good stuff. Because if I think back on my career, and I know that people I've spoken to agree with this, it's much easier to do something you dislike with people that you love and respect than it is to do something you love with a bunch of people that you hate. That makes sense. So the people and the bosses and the culture are actually more important than the work that you do, is what I'm saying.
Mm,
So spending the time to research that and truly understand it is crucial.
thank you. That's great. I love that. In Better, Bolder, Braver, we talk when we have guests on our podcast who sing from a similar marketing hymn sheet to us, a good ethical marketing hymn sheet, as we like to think, as our marketing family. And of course, you would fit into that, but you're also part of something I think I want to call our kind of corporate culture family. And you've been so generous with your time today. I wondered what you would like people here to know about the work that you do, and thinking about your own needs and wants, Warren. What would you like to articulate as being what you think you need and want from your work now that you would like people to know? What do you want next?
Oh, so in answer to the first part of your question, what I do now is in Innovation Leap, our line is that we help businesses and teams and individuals to take creative leaps in their growth. So that is through innovation consulting and foresight consulting and marketing consulting. It's through capability building around storytelling for business, around innovation culture, all of those things. And it's in culture building. So team building, visions, values, and long-term building of innovation cultures and businesses. And the thing that I want for my business right now is just to continue to enjoy it and to continue to work with clients that I really admire and respect, and businesses that I am fascinated by, and to continue enjoying what I do, because I think that if you can enjoy what you do, you know, I can't remember who said it, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. It does feel like that sometimes. You'll see behind me, I've got a whole bunch of Lego up here on my shelf. I work with Lego a lot, and I've got a great relationship with Lego, and I love working with them. That's a great example of something that for me is not like work. It's just really interesting, really fun, and is genuinely something I love. And not every part of work is like that, but you can certainly get to a place where the majority of work is like that. And I think that the simple thing I'd want to leave people with is, I guess a few years ago, I made a decision that if I looked at the time I was spending at work, I was going to just stop doing all the stuff that de-energized me and start doing as much more of the stuff that energized me. And if you look at the split of your week, what percentage of it is stuff that gives you energy? What percentage of it is stuff that takes away energy? And just quite simply try and make more of the stuff that gives you energy, less of the stuff that doesn't. Ask yourself what would happen if you just stopped doing that stuff or delegated to someone else that might get energized by it, or did it in a different way, or just stopped doing it. And what more could you do that gives you that energy? Rebalancing that in that really simple way has helped me to get a lot of joy out of what I do. I hope that everyone else listening can find that as well.
Thank you. I mean, I could have easily had you on as a coach talking about what I've told you I call the work-work balance.
Yeah.
Where we could hear your insights into, as you say, balancing your week according to work that makes you happy, the portfolio of that. But that may be a conversation we can have another day, because I know a lot of coaches would be very interested to hear how you do that. But for now, Warren, thank you for being there for me, as you have been for many years. And yes, I will post in the show notes, as it were, details for how to connect with Warren or find out more about what Warren does if you so wish. And thank you for being here.
Cool. Thank you. It's a pleasure.